Now, according to Barclays, South Africans are the most philanthropic on the continent. Shelagh Gastrow, founder of Philanthropy South Africa, joins us from Cape Town to discuss this one. I remember the first time when I talked about philanthropy. I remember it was an interview with an executive from UBS, and I was surprised that UBS, the money manager globally, was talking about philanthropy and giving away, and I was thinking, where is the connection? But then I understood. They deal with millionaires, billionaires, and these people, when they've made their billions, they need to give them to work and to make a difference in their society. Is that the same approach that South Africans take to philanthropy?
I think there are quite a lot of wealthy people in South Africa who give back. And it's been for quite a long time that they've been giving back. Some of the foundations that were established in South Africa go back to the 1930s and 1940s. So there has been a tradition of wealthy people giving back and actually institutionalizing their giving. There are many others, of course, who give in a charitable way, that they give of their personal funds every month or regularly or when asked. But what we're really keen to look at when it comes to philanthropy is to see how wealthy people institutionalize their giving.
Why do they give, Sheila?
There are a variety of reasons. I think a lot of people have excess money, and there's only so much you can use. There's only so much you can use to secure your family in the future. But we also live in a country where the need is enormous, and it's in your face every day. You're traveling on a road, there's always people at the traffic lights. So there's a continual reminder of issues relating to poverty in the country. And most South Africans feel in some way that they want to contribute to making sure that South Africa becomes a successful state.
Yeah.
And this is one way of doing it.
Yeah. So I was looking at the names that we had on board on our screen, showing some of the philanthropists here in South Africa. Mark Shuttleworth. We also have Patrice Motsepe there, of course. And I was just thinking, of course, South Africa has got this big bad history that it has from apartheid. And the expectation is that the people who have money are whites. Are you able to get an understanding of who gives more between blacks and whites? It's the rest question again, but you can't run away from it in South Africa.
No, you can't. And I think the issue we have to understand here is probably institutionalized philanthropy is still very much a feature of the white community, but we're starting to see more and more of the sort of emerging black elites showing great interest. And if you look at the Inyatelo Philanthropy Awards, you'll start seeing that this is shifting, and Patrice Motsepe in particular is a good example. Cyril Ramaphosa has set up some very interesting foundations. But if you had to say who's giving more, I wouldn't want to quantify, but what we do know is that poor people, pro rata, give more than wealthy people. So there's a huge amount of giving going on right across South Africa.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make, that of course what we're talking about is the philanthropy that we know. In other words, those that make it to the headlines. And yet within our communities themselves, we know there's a lot of giving that goes on. And that, of course, you can't measure.
No, there have been attempts to measure giving, but I think it's very, very difficult. What I can say about the emerging black elites, and traditional philanthropy very often takes time to develop. And what we're seeing with the emerging black elites is huge expectations, because they're first generation wealth from their families, from their communities, from perhaps the rural areas they come from. And they are giving masses of money to things like funerals, school fees, school uniforms, bursaries for kids to go to university. And that's not formal giving. It's kind of family and community giving, but it's not, we cannot say that there's not huge amounts of money going to support communities in that way. Yeah,
I'd love if we could have been able to explore some of these places where the money goes and the kind of initiatives these philanthropists start. But my director just gave me another question here. So he says, is philanthropy the objective of capitalism? In other words, you take and you take and you take, and then on your own terms, you then give back.
I think that is one way of looking at it. I mean, there's a wonderful cartoon which is produced by the philosopher Zizek, And he talks about charity being absorbed in the act of consumption. And he shows a picture of George Soros making a lot of money in the morning and giving it away in the afternoon. And I mean, that is one way of looking at it. The other thing wealthy people do, hopefully, is pay a lot of tax, so that one hopes the state is using. So this is excess money.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of overlooks the millions and millions of people who aren't rich, who give away.
That's true.
So we're kind of focusing on the very wealthy, and we are forgetting probably the billions that regular, ordinary people give.
That's true. Before I let you go, I just wanted to ask you another question on the act of giving itself. I read a book, as I said to another person the other time. This is CNBC. We shouldn't be talking about Michael Bloomberg, but Michael Bloomberg, who founded Bloomberg, in his book, Bloomberg by Bloomberg, talks about the fact that he says it's easier to make money than it is to give it away, because you can't just throw it, can you? You need to be clear, and you also need to set up structures and processes so that when you give the money, it makes a difference. How difficult is it to give?
It is difficult, because throwing money at things doesn't solve problems. And that's the whole point of separating philanthropy, let's say, from charitable giving, which is very spontaneous and you give immediately. Philanthropy is much more strategic, and people with really large amounts of money want to make sure that where that money goes has impact. So it does mean doing research, getting good advisors, meeting the people where the money's going, following up and monitoring, and that is really hard work.
It is hard work. Thanks to Shelagh Gastrow, founder of Philanthropy South Africa. Thank you for your time.